Hamas has announced it will release an American-Israeli soldier after direct talks with the Trump administration. Edan Alexander is believed to be the last living American captive held in the Strip. President Donald Trump has called the move a step taken in good faith to end the war and was achieved through mediators Qatar and Egypt. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel has not committed to a ceasefire and negotiations will continue under fire. Israel is continuing its assault right across the Strip. At least 17 Palestinians, including children, were killed after a school sheltering forcibly displaced Palestinians in the Jabalia refugee camp came under attack. Local officials are warning at least 65,000 children are at risk of death because of Israel's crippling blockade of Gaza that's continued for more than 2 months. Food, medicine, water, and vital supplies have all been cut off.
It's so hard. There is no open border crossing. There's no flour. There is no food, no drink. There is nothing. When we came here to the soup kitchen, we end up waiting in line for 4 or 5 hours in the sun. It's exhausting. And in the end, we walk away with nothing. There is not enough for everybody. Only half the people get food. We scramble to get here, and in the end, we get nothing.
Hamdah Salhut, following developments in Israel from the Jordanian capital, Amman. But first, let's talk to Tareq Azzoum on the ground in Deir el-Balah in central Gaza. So what are you hearing about the release of the American-Israeli captive, Tareq?
Well, Dareen, we understand that the spokesperson of the military wing of Hamas has stated that Al-Qassam brigades will release the Israeli-American soldier Edan Alexander today, and as a part of the negotiations that had been made between Hamas and the United States. We understand that the release will take place today, and the Israeli soldier will be handed over to the International Committee of the Red Cross later to be handed over to the Israeli side in order to be reunited with his family members. It's quite understandable that this move is seen as a part of the ongoing efforts to restart dialogue, potentially leading to secure the release of the remaining Israeli captives, the establishment of non-partisan governing body here in the Gaza Strip, and the release of more Palestinian prisoners. But Hamas will not get anything in return of this exchange because Israel said that it comes without any compensation, but as a goodwill gesture to the American administration to facilitate ceasefire negotiations and the entry of humanitarian aid supplies to the Gaza Strip.
Okay, thank you so much, Tareq, for that reporting from Gaza. Hamdah Salhut joining us from the Jordanian capital, Amman. She's there because the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority have banned Al Jazeera from reporting inside Israel and the occupied West Bank. What are you hearing about this developing situation from the Israeli side, Hamdah?
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office releasing a statement earlier this morning saying that they're welcoming the release of Israeli-American captive Edan Alexander, but that Israel has not committed to any sort of ceasefire or committed to the release of any Palestinian prisoners, going on to note that there is a deal on the table that Hamas has refused, known as the Witkoff proposal, that was proposed several months ago that would see an extension, essentially, of phase 1 of that deal that Israel decided to step away from back in March and resume the fighting. But the Israelis also say that any sort of future negotiations are going to happen not only under fire, but during these talks of the expansion of the military operations inside of Gaza. Now, it's still unclear exactly as for a timeline as to when Edan Alexander is going to be released from Gaza, but the Israelis say that they are opening a safe corridor so that he can be released.
Okay, Hamdah, thank you for that update. Let's cross back to Tareq once again in Gaza to talk about the other important issue, of course, is the critical shortage of all sorts of supplies, food, medical supplies, aid in the Gaza Strip. So how is that affecting particularly hospitals, Tareq, and that one behind you?
Well, we understand that the humanitarian catastrophe has reached what the United Nations now is calling an unbearable and unsustainable breaking point, where hospitals, alongside also with families, are unable to bear up with the ongoing repercussions of the Israeli closure of borders and the ongoing ban of aid deliveries to the territories. has been very massive pressure on Gaza's hospitals to deal with the high rate numbers of casualties that continue to flow to the hospitals because of the Israeli non-stop bombardment. Alongside that, the hospitals are suffering from very acute shortages on their pharmaceutical warehouses, where many drugs and medicines started to run out massively from the warehouses. And on top of that, there has been multiple statements has been released from the UN top officials and key officials in Gaza's health ministry, warning of further deterioration to take place in the services provided by Gaza's barely functional hospitals if border crossings will not be reopened again. But the situation is still quite uncertain because Israel till now is refusing to show any sign of a change in its policies regarding reopening border crossings, which means that not just only famine will be deepening in Gaza, but also hospitals might cessate its services due to fuel shortages and the chronic sharp decrease in the numbers of drugs available in Gaza's hospitals and pharmaceutical warehouses.
Okay, thank you so much, Tareq Azzoum, reporting from Gaza. We have with us Luciano Zaccara, who's an associate professor of Gulf politics at Qatar University, joining us here on set. And we have Ori Goldberg, an Israeli political commentator, who's joining us from Tel Aviv. Ori, over to you first. So Trump has announced the release of this reportedly last American captive soldier that's being held in Gaza. He thanks Egypt and Qatar in the statement that he makes and makes no mention of Israel. How is that going down in Israel?
It is going down as exactly what it is. It's a massive blow to Netanyahu. Trump is basically saying to Netanyahu, I've done this is my duty, now you're on your own. And Netanyahu and Israel are now much more fair game than they were 2 days ago for every international inquiry or international agency seeking to enforce international law.
Luciano, what do you think about all of this? I mean, and if you look at the Trump administration and the way that it's been doing things, right, this is not the first time that it's reached out to Hamas directly. Earlier in the week, we saw the U.S. also speak to via Amman, but they reached that ceasefire deal, of course, with the Houthis. I mean, every U.S. administration has in the past coordinated closely with Israel. It seems this administration is doing things differently.
Yeah, it seems like he's putting America first in everything he's doing in terms of foreign policy, and whatever it's pleasing American interest will be done without any hesitation about talking or negotiating or even informing allies of the United States. It doesn't mean that Trump will abandon Israel at all, but it means that if there are things at stake that are useful for or important for the U.S., Trump will act first without or disregarding whatever concern Netanyahu or other allies have. And that's why he started to negotiate with Iran, even though Netanyahu was expecting to have a preemptive attack on Iran. He started to negotiate with Houthis in the middle of a big military operation against them. And since a few months ago, he started direct negotiations with Hamas that they continued, even though nobody was speaking about that, to release American hostages, regardless of what Netanyahu has been doing. Again, this doesn't mean that Trump is not giving Netanyahu a green light in terms of what he's doing in Gaza, in terms of the military operation or the reoccupation of whole Gaza, but he's saying that what he's doing for America is separated from everything that is the rest, and he will pursue whatever he needs to do in order to achieve his goals that benefits the United States.
Ori, will this pressure Netanyahu at all, or at least the families of the captives that are remaining? Will they take this and pressure Netanyahu to end the war?
The families of the captives, unfortunately, don't really have much sway over Netanyahu. This has become a human interest story, certainly for Netanyahu and his followers, but I think across Israeli media. However, the political pressure that Trump is applying to Netanyahu is, I think, quite significant. The detachment of Israeli interests from American interests is an earthquake. The Biden administration did exactly the opposite, basically saying that whatever Israel did was good for the United States. With Trump drawing a clear line, Trump is, again, basically signaling to the rest of the world that Israel is cut off from the herd, that Israel stands alone, that it is responsible for its actions, and that he and the United States will not offer any significant help to Israel for the purposes of extricating it from whatever comes next. Netanyahu and his government make brash statements about the occupation of Gaza and so on. So far, none of this is actually happening. While draft notices have been issued, it isn't clear what is going to happen and how it's going to happen. And I would say that Israel at the moment is flailing and is doing so quite desperately.
So just to be clear, Ori, are you saying that the government is sort of in disarray and about its next steps when it comes to Gaza?
Very much in disarray. Of course, it has various factions, each one of them with supposedly a clear plan for what is going to happen. But this move from the United States, negotiating directly with Hamas, basically dismisses all of Israel's claims that Hamas is beyond negotiation. It rejects Israel's claims that Hamas is not up for a deal. Of course, it's not a comprehensive deal, and I doubt the United States will side openly with Hamas, but Israel has been given notice.
Right.
This has not been done before. This is really a remarkable step. There's been talk about this, but it hasn't been done before. It's quite clear that Netanyahu himself doesn't really know what to do with this news, and he is not prepared for whatever Trump may do, knowing full well that Trump can do anything, and that pretty much all of the options, including Trump's refusal to meet with him during his visit to the Middle East next week, are bad for Israel.
Luciano, final thought for you. What are Hamas's calculations? Because we know, or the report seems to suggest that Hamas is not getting anything in return, meaning no Palestinian prisoners are being released in exchange for this Israeli captive.
Exactly. I mean, Trump is working with this carrot and stick policy, but the stick is much heavier than the carrot, and it looks like it's bearing fruit in this case. But as my previous guest said, maybe Hamas, what it's trying to do is to show the rest of the world that they are able to negotiate and they are willing to negotiate with the United States or with whoever wants to talk with them. But it's Netanyahu who is refusing to do that, and that he only is focused on continuing the war in order to eliminate as many people as possible. So I think it's a mixed message that the Hamas is giving to the US, that the war is not with them, that they don't want to have problems with them, but also that they are willing to keep negotiating with Israel in order to achieve a ceasefire.
Okay, Luciano, Zaccara, Ori Goldberg, thank you so much for your time with us on the NewsHour.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.